You didn't press play by mistake. Maybe this is where grace was waiting to meet you again. And now it begins to whisper. You're here at the edge of the night. The screens glow, soft against your tired eyes. The world outside hums cars in the distance, a faint breeze against your window. It's so easy to slip into the glow of your phone, to watch reels until your mind numbs and your heart forgets what it was hungry for. But here you are, letting yourself pause, even if just for a moment, even if you're not sure you believe that moments like this matter. You probably won't survive this endless cycle of hurry and noise if you keep ignoring the quiet parts of your soul. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there, so I can imagine your tiny light in the dark somewhere in this wide world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You let go of your phone, even if just in your mind, feeling its weight pulling at your thumb. The echo of notifications that want you to stay connected, informed, entertained. You wonder if the world's knowledge could somehow soothe the ache inside you tonight. If answers could fix the tightness in your chest that you carry through the day and into the night like a quiet bruise you've learned to ignore. You sit on your bed, the blanket pulled around your legs, your breath slowing as you exhale. You notice the hum of the small fan in the corner, the soft click of its oscillation, the rhythm, a kind of prayer you don't realize you've needed. You close your eyes for a moment and let your shoulders drop just a fraction. And in that fraction, there is grace. You remember how often you look for reassurance in the digital glow. How many times you type your fears into search bars, hoping the world's information will hand you peace, like a perfectly wrapped answer. You search for symptoms late at night, for signs that you'll be okay, for articles that promise you won't feel like this forever. And yet the ache remains quiet, but persistent, beneath the flood of headlines and health tips, under the endless advice the algorithms designed to give you what you want before you even know you want it. Tonight, you breathe and you realize that you are more than what you can Google, that there is something in you that wants to be seen, known, and loved, not just understood. You feel the tension in your jaw, the tiny muscles that hold all the unsaid words you've carried throughout your day. The words you didn't say when you wanted to ask for help. The tears you swallowed when you wanted to let them fall. The questions you kept hidden because you thought you should already know the answers. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself be held by a love that doesn't demand your productivity, your certainty, your strength. Perhaps you don't need to know everything before you sleep. Perhaps you don't need to fix yourself before you rest. You remember the parable of the lost sheep, the shepherd leaving the 99 to find the one. You imagine that shepherd's hands, rough from the journey, lifting the small, trembling creature into his arms, whispering, "I see you. I know you. You are safe now." You wonder if that could be you tonight, if there is a shepherd who sees your scrolling, your searching, your silent, hidden tears, and still chooses to come closer. And in this moment, as the night stretches on and the world outside continues its restless spin, you allow yourself to breathe, to let go of the need to know. to fix, to understand. You allow yourself to be the one who is found, not the one who has to find everything. You think of the world's knowledge, how it expands every day. How AI now writes songs, diagnoses, diseases, predicts what you'll buy next week, even finishes your sentences. And yet it cannot sit with you in the quiet, cannot hold your hand when you feel alone, cannot whisper hope into your fear. It cannot love you back. Tonight, you are allowed to let go of the search for answers and allow yourself to feel the question, what if I am already loved, already seen, even when I don't know enough, even when I feel like I'm behind, even when I don't have the energy to pray the right words? Perhaps prayer isn't about words anyway. Perhaps it's about this moment, your breath slowing, your heart opening, your tears softening into something that feels like release. Perhaps prayer is letting yourself be seen, letting yourself be loved, even when you don't have it all together. You open your eyes and look around your room. The soft shadows, the hum of the fan, the small messes that remind you that you are alive, that you are trying, that you are here. You are here, and that is enough. Tonight, you let yourself be held by the grace that does not demand perfection, that does not require you to understand everything, that does not ask you to earn your rest. Tonight, you let yourself rest, knowing that it is enough to be here breathing, being loved. And as your eyes grow heavier, as your body softens into the bed, you let go of the search for answers, the need for knowledge, the ache for certainty. You let yourself be the beloved, found by a shepherd who has always seen you, always known, you always loved you. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. You feel the strange intimacy of algorithms predicting your cravings, and you wonder if God sees you with the same precision. You lie there, your screen still within reach, and you think about how often your feed knows you before you know yourself. The ad for the thing you didn't realize you needed, the song suggestion that somehow feels like your story, the late-night video that catches you in a moment you didn't know was so fragile. You scroll, and it's as if the algorithms are studying your breath, your pauses, your hesitation before you click, learning you in ways even you forget to notice. And it is intimate, isn't it? To be known like that, even by a machine. It feels like a kind of comfort, this certainty that someone, something is paying attention, mapping your fears and hopes, charting your desires into data points that promise to satisfy you before you even form the question in your mind. But as you watch another reel, as you open another notification, you wonder if being known by a machine is the same as being seen. Because being seen is different from being measured. Being seen is different from being tracked. Being seen is to have someone notice the tears you wipe away with the back of your hand, the small smile you give yourself in the mirror when you're trying to believe you can face another day, the way your shoulders tense when you remember the words that hurt you, the way you breathe out when you finally let yourself rest. You think about how the world now is filled with these tiny, invisible watchers predicting your patterns, refining your experience, optimizing your feed so that you will stay, you will watch, you will buy. And yet you can't help but feel that the more you are known by the machine, the more alone you feel in the spaces that matter. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to remember that there is a kind of knowing that does not reduce you to patterns, that does not monetize your desires, that does not demand your attention as payment for comfort. You think of the parable of the woman at the well, how Jesus meets her in the heat of the day, knowing her story before she tells it, and yet letting her tell it anyway. You imagine the way he looks at her, the kindness in his eyes, the way he listens as if her voice matters, as if her story is worth hearing, even if he already knows every detail. You wonder if God sees you like that, if he sees your scrolling, your searching, your quiet ache for validation, your longing to feel important, to feel chosen, to feel known. You wonder if he sees you with that same gentle knowing, that same tender attention, that same promise that you are more than the sum of your clicks and searches and purchases. Tonight, you let yourself imagine that you are seen in this way, not as a user, not as a consumer, not as data to be analyzed, but as a beloved soul, worthy of being known, worthy of being loved even when you don't perform, even when you don't produce, even when you don't understand why you feel so tired all the time. You think about the notifications you silence before bed, the updates, you ignore the news you can't bring yourself to read. The world is so loud, and it claims to know everything, to have the answers, to predict the future, to solve your problems with the perfect product, the perfect plan, the perfect post. But the world's knowledge does not quiet the fear in your chest, does not ease the tension in your shoulders, does not hold your hand in the dark. You are allowed to step away, even for a moment, to let yourself be seen by the one who does not demand your attention, but gently invites it, who does not manipulate your desires, but honors them, who does not monetize your pain, but holds it tenderly, without rushing you to heal before you're ready. You remember a moment earlier today when you laughed, really laughed, and for a moment you felt alive, present free. You remember how good it felt, and you realize that no algorithm can create that kind of presence, that kind of connection, that kind of aliveness. It can predict your preferences, but it cannot love you. Tonight, as the glow of your screen dims and your eyelids grow heavier, you let yourself wonder if there is a knowing beyond data, a presence beyond prediction, a love beyond algorithm. You let yourself believe, if only for tonight, that you are seen, known, and loved in a way that does not require you to perform or perfect yourself, in a way that holds you exactly as you are, in this moment, in this breath. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to trust that there is a shepherd who sees you, who knows you, who calls you by name, even when the world reduces you to a user ID and a pattern of clicks. Perhaps it is enough to be known in this way, to let yourself be loved, to let yourself rest. And as your breath slows, as your body softens into the mattress, you let the glow of your phone fade into the darkness, and you let yourself be seen, not by the machines that learn you, but by the one who loves you. You scroll past posts promising productivity and hacks questioning if surrender is still holy in a world obsessed with optimization. You find yourself in that familiar scroll, thumb sliding eyes, scanning mind half numb and half hungry for the next promise that maybe this time, this one tip, this one system will finally organize your chaos. The posts flash by 5 a.m. routines that will change your life. How to get 10x more done in a day. The ultimate habit tracker to finally become your best self. The world has become a cathedral of productivity, worshiping at the altar of hustle sacrifice, measured not in quiet devotion, but in sleepless ambition. And you feel it, the pressure to improve, to be better, to optimize every hour, to measure your worth in the language of checklists and calendars and streaks unbroken. You want to be found worthy, to be seen as enough. And you wonder if just one more tool, one more hack, one more sleepless push will finally get you there. But as you lie in bed, the screen inches from your face, your eyes dry and heavy. You feel the ache beneath the drive, the exhaustion beneath the ambition, the fear beneath the productivity. You wonder if it is holy to surrender in a world that only praises the relentless, if there is grace in choosing rest when everyone else seems to be running faster. You remember the parable of Mary and Martha, how Martha was busy with many things, preparing, serving, managing, while Mary simply sat listening, being resting at Jesus' feet. And you feel the tension within you, the voice that tells you to keep moving, to keep doing, to keep proving, and the quieter voice that invites you to simply be, to rest, to trust that you are loved, even when you are not producing. You think about how AI is designed to optimize, to make everything faster, better, more efficient. It writes for you, plans for you, suggests for you, predicts for you. It promises to take away the friction, the pauses, the uncertainty, the slow places where you have to stop and think, where you have to feel your own limitations. And it is tempting, so tempting, to believe that optimization is the way to salvation, that productivity is the path to worthiness, that hustle is the new holiness. But tonight, you feel the whisper of a different truth, soft but persistent, calling you back to something slower, something quieter, something more tender. You wonder if the friction is holy, if the pauses are sacred, if the slowness is where you meet grace. You wonder if surrender is still an act of faith in a world that measures your value by your output, your efficiency, your ability to keep up with the unrelenting pace. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to lay down your endless striving, your fear of falling behind, your hunger to prove yourself through the check marks of another app, another system, another hack. Perhaps you are already enough, already loved, already seen, even when you let the dishes sit in the sink, the emails go unanswered, the to-do list remain unfinished. You think of your breath, how it comes and goes without your effort, how your heart beats without your control, how your body keeps you alive even when you are not trying. You realize that your worth is not something you have to earn through productivity, that your value is not something you have to prove through hustle, that your belovedness is not something you have to achieve through optimization. You think of the moments today when you were fully alive, not because you were efficient, but because you were present, the way the sunlight hit your face in the morning, the taste of coffee on your tongue, the warmth of a passing smile, the softness of a breath you allowed yourself to take. You remember that these moments were gifts, not goals, invitations, not achievements. You consider how AI may one day predict your schedule, optimize your tasks, write your content, manage your life down to the finest detail. But you realize that even if everything is optimized, if every moment is packed with efficiency, you might still miss the gentle, sacred slowness where you meet the presence of God, the breath of grace, the quiet of love. Tonight, you let yourself stop. You let yourself surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of faith, as a holy trust that you are held, loved, and enough even in your resting. You lay down the pressure to prove yourself, to perfect yourself, to optimize yourself into worthiness, and you let yourself be as you are here now in the quiet of the night. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. And as your eyes grow heavy, as your body softens into the stillness, you let go of the world's demands, the algorithm's demands, the relentless voice of productivity, and you let yourself be held by the one who invites you to rest, who sees you as beloved, who calls your surrender holy. You take one last breath before sleep slow and deep, and you let yourself believe, even if only for tonight, that you are enough. You are surrounded by endless answers, yet a quiet ache remains whispering that wisdom is not the same as data. You lie in the soft hush of your room, the glow of your screen finally fading as your eyes close, and in the dark, your mind replays the endless stream of answers you've collected today. The quick searches for reassurance, the instant responses, the chatbot's polite efficiency, the posts that promise to teach you how to fix every flaw you've discovered in yourself. It's all there. Layers upon layers of information stacked in your mind, like hurried notes you're afraid to forget. And yet the ache remains, because knowledge is easy to find now. All you need is a question, and the world's wisdom floods in bullet-pointed, summarized, optimized for your consumption. You know so much, and still you feel so lost. You have so many answers, and still you feel so restless. The ache beneath the information is like a small pulsing light inside you, asking a question you can't quite name. You think of how AI and the internet have become your constant companions, always there to provide explanations, tips, strategies. They offer their comfort with clean fonts and soothing interfaces telling you what to eat, how to sleep, how to think, how to heal. But there is something missing in the precision of it all, something that data cannot replace, something that facts cannot soothe. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to allow yourself to step away from the need for answers, to let yourself be held by the mystery. You cannot resolve the questions. You cannot fully answer the space where faith breathes quietly, unmeasured, unproven, but deeply known. You remember the parable of the prodigal son, how he left with certainty, certain that he knew what he wanted, certain that he had the answers, certain that he could find what he needed outside of the Father's embrace. And you remember how he returned empty, hungry, weary, carrying the ache of every answer that wasn't enough, every solution that failed to satisfy the longing inside him. And you remember the Father's embrace, the way he ran, the way he wept, the way he called his son beloved before a single apology could be spoken. You wonder if that is you, tonight, surrounded by answers, but aching for presence, carrying knowledge, but longing for wisdom, holding information, but craving love. You wonder if the questions you carry are not failures to be fixed, but invitations to be held, to be seen, to be embraced. You think of how easy it is to turn to your phone when you feel anxious, to search for a solution, to look for a quick reassurance, to try to fill the silence with the certainty of someone else's words. But you realize that what you need is not more information, but a place to rest, a place to breathe, a place to be human in a world that wants you to be a machine of certainty and efficiency. You think of the moments when you felt truly wise, and you realize they weren't moments of knowing everything, but moments of being present, sitting with a friend in silence, watching the rain, letting yourself cry, without rushing to fix the reason why, allowing yourself to not know, and still choosing to trust that you are held. You think of how the world is addicted to certainty, how we fear not knowing, how we run from doubt, how we chase answers as if they can save us from our own humanity. But tonight, you wonder if there is a holiness in not knowing, if there is wisdom in the questions that remain unanswered, if there is grace in the spaces where you are allowed to simply be. You allow yourself to breathe, to let go of the urgency, to understand everything, to solve every problem before you close your eyes. You let yourself feel the ache, the gentle whisper that reminds you that wisdom is not the same as data, that love is not the same as information, that faith is not the same as certainty. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let your questions be prayers, to let your doubts be spaces where faith can grow, to let your longing be a doorway to something deeper than knowledge. As your eyelids grow heavy, as your breath slows, you allow yourself to sink into the softness of your bed, to let the quiet wrap around you like a gentle blanket, to let yourself believe, even if just for tonight, that you are held, that you are loved, that you are allowed to not have all the answers. You are allowed to rest even in the questions. You consider the echo chambers of social media and wonder if prayer is simply your heart's rebellion against automation. The glow of your screen lingers in your mind even after you put it down, its images and voices replaying in fragments you can't quite silence. The arguments, the opinions, the endless certainty from strangers who believe they hold the final truth about everything. The world has become louder than your own thoughts, louder than your own questions, louder than the whisper of your spirit, trying to speak beneath the noise. And you realize that these echo chambers are comfortable in a way. They tell you what you already believe. They affirm your biases. They reinforce your fears. They wrap you in a cocoon of familiarity, promising you safety. If you agree, validation. If you align, belonging. if you stay within the lines they draw. But beneath the comfort, there is a numbness, an erosion of wonder, a flattening of your soul into the shape of algorithms. You feel it the way you start scrolling without realizing, the way you reach for your phone before your feet touch the floor. In the morning, the way you let notifications set the rhythm of your day before you even take a deep breath. You let these feeds, these carefully designed systems of engagement, decide what is worth your attention, your outrage, your hope, your heartbreak. And in the dark of your room, in the quiet that finally comes when you put your phone down, you wonder if you've forgotten how to speak words that aren't for an audience, how to ask questions that aren't meant to be debated, how to feel longing that isn't immediately consumed by someone else's opinions. You wonder if prayer is rebellion, because prayer doesn't ask for likes, shares, comments, or retweets. Prayer doesn't optimize for engagement or algorithmic favor. Prayer doesn't promise quick answers or instant validation. Prayer doesn't measure your worth by how many agree with you. Prayer, real prayer, is a space where you bring your raw, unfiltered self into the presence of one who already knows, already sees, already loves. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let your heart speak words that aren't meant to be packaged, marketed, or measured, to let your soul whisper its deepest fears and tender hopes into a silence that is not empty but holy. You think of the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee, how one prayed loudly, confidently, certain of his righteousness, while the other simply beat his chest and whispered, "God have mercy on me." You wonder which voice your spirit echoes, and you realize that the quiet, trembling prayer of the heart is the one that touches heaven, the one that does not need to perform, the one that is enough simply because it is honest. You think about how AI can mimic human voices, how it can write prayers, generate sermons, offer pre-packaged spiritual guidance. And it is strange, isn't it, to consider that even faith can be automated, digitized, optimized for efficiency and reach. But you wonder if there is something sacred that cannot be replicated, something in the trembling voice of your own spirit that no machine can imitate, something in your longing that defies automation. Prayer is not a transaction. It is a relationship, a surrender, a quiet rebellion against a world that tells you to perform. Prayer is the place where you can be messy, broken, unfinished, and still be welcome, still be loved, still be held. You let yourself whisper a prayer tonight, even if you don't have the words, even if it is just a sigh, a tear, a breath. You let yourself be honest, even if honesty feels uncomfortable, even if it feels too vulnerable, even if you don't know what comes next. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let your prayer be imperfect, to let your heart be honest, to let your soul be seen by the one who does not demand your perfection, but delights in your presence. As your eyes begin to close, as your body softens into the comfort of your bed, you let go of the world's demands, the echo chambers, the endless opinions, and you allow yourself to enter a quiet space where your spirit can breathe. Tonight, you let prayer be your rebellion against the automation of your soul. You let your whispered words be a reminder that you are alive, that you are loved, that you are allowed to speak to the one who listens, who sees, who cares. And as sleep gently approaches, you rest in the sacred quiet, in the unoptimized slowness, in the soft grace of being heard. You notice the constant hum of notifications and realize that stillness feels countercultural now. But perhaps that's where faith breathes. It's late, but your phone buzzes again. A message, a comment, an update, a reminder. The glow of the screen lights up the dark for a moment, then fades, then returns a soft, persistent hum that feels like it owns the rhythm of your life. You feel it in your body, the twitch in your hand reaching for the phone without thought, the tightening in your chest as you read another notification. You didn't need the restless scanning for something you can't quite name. The world is loud, and even the silence is filled with noise. A hum of alerts, a pulse of vibrations, a whisper of updates promising you connection while slowly draining your attention, your energy, your peace. You wonder when you stopped being able to sit in stillness, when you stopped being able to let a moment be empty without the need to fill it with scrolling, reading, checking. Stillness feels like rebellion now. It feels uncomfortable, like you're doing something wrong, like you're missing out, falling behind, failing to keep up with the relentless speed of information and demands. But in the discomfort, there is also a soft whisper that feels like a call home. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself be still, to let the hum fade into the background, to allow the silence to be a sanctuary instead of a threat. You think of the parable of Jesus calming the storm, how the disciples were terrified as the waves crashed around them, how the chaos felt overwhelming, how they cried out in fear, and how Jesus simply spoke, "Peace be still." You imagine the wind softening the waves, quieting the hush that fell over the water, and the way the disciples must have felt standing there, in the unexpected stillness, their fear giving way to awe. You wonder if stillness is where faith breathes, if it is in the quiet that you can hear the gentle voice reminding you that you are not alone, that you are held, that you are loved, even when you are not producing, not performing, not proving. You think of how AI and technology have made everything immediate. Messages are instant, answers are instant, reactions are instant. There is no waiting, no pausing, no room for the sacred in between. And you realize how easy it is to live without stillness, to fill every moment with content, to let the noise replace the questions you don't want to face. But tonight, you let yourself pause. You let the stillness feel uncomfortable, and you stay with it, even if just for a breath. You notice the way your shoulders drop, the way your jaw loosens, the way your breath softens when you let yourself be present. You notice the way your mind fights the quiet, trying to fill it with plans, worries, regrets, and you gently let those thoughts drift by, like clouds moving across a quiet sky. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let the stillness be your prayer, your rebellion, your act of faith in a world that wants you to keep moving. Perhaps the quiet is not empty, but full of presence, full of grace, full of the soft whisper reminding you that you are enough, that you are loved, that you are allowed to rest. You think about the moments in your day when you rushed, when you felt the pressure to be efficient, when you let the notifications dictate your priorities. You remember the tension in your body, the way your mind scattered, the way your spirit felt small and frantic. And you realize that stillness is a gift. You can give yourself a place where your spirit can expand, where your breath can deepen, where your soul can remember who you are beyond the noise. You let yourself imagine that God meets you in the stillness, not demanding, not hurrying, but simply being with you, delighting in your presence, loving you without condition or expectation. You let yourself believe that in the quiet, you can hear the gentle voice of love that says, "You are enough. You are seen. You are held." As your eyes grow heavy, as your body sinks into the softness of your bed, you let the hum of the world fade. You let the silence wash over you, and you allow yourself to be still. You let your breath be your prayer, your heartbeat be your hymn, your rest be your act of faith. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to trust that the world will continue spinning while you sleep, that you do not have to hold it all together, that you are allowed to let go and simply be. And as sleep gently approaches, you rest in the stillness, in the soft, sacred quiet, in the grace that meets you in the silence. You remember moments when a warm hand on your shoulder meant more than the smartest device, and you wonder if God's nearness is like that. Tonight, as the world quiets and your screen finally rests on your nightstand, you find yourself remembering a moment that didn't need a notification, didn't need an app, didn't need an algorithm to tell you it mattered. You remember the warmth of a hand on your shoulder, the weight of it grounding you, comforting you, reminding you that you were not alone. Maybe it was a friend who showed up when you were falling apart, or a parent who held you when words wouldn't come, or a stranger's simple kindness that left a mark on your spirit. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't optimized. It wasn't planned. But it was real. It was presence. It was human. You think about how your devices keep you connected to everything. How you can know what's happening across the world in seconds. How you can text, call, message, send emojis, react instantly. But in the flood of constant connection, you feel the quiet ache of loneliness, the longing for presence that isn't pixelated for closeness, that isn't delayed by a Wi-Fi signal. You wonder if God's nearness is like that warm hand, the simple quiet presence that asks nothing of you, that offers no lecture, that requires no perfection, that simply says, "I'm here." You wonder if the sacred is found not in the knowledge that God is everywhere, but in the tangible nearness that meets you in your loneliness, in your fear, in your exhaustion. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself believe that you are not alone, that you are seen, that you are held, even when you cannot see it, even when you do not feel it, even when your faith feels thin and fragile. You think of the parable of the Good Samaritan, the way the man was beaten and left on the side of the road, the way others passed him by, efficient in their plans, busy with their important tasks, unwilling to be interrupted. And then the Samaritan stopped, saw him, came near, bandaged his wounds, carried him. Presence, nearness, kindness interrupting the pace of a world that moves too fast. You wonder if you allow yourself to be interrupted like that, to slow down enough, to notice your own needs, to let yourself be cared for, to receive the presence that God offers in the soft, quiet moments you so easily overlook. You think about how AI offers to help, to assist, to comfort with automated replies, wellness reminders, mental health check-ins, even simulated conversation. And it is helpful. It is a tool. It is efficient. But it cannot replace the warmth of a hand on your shoulder, the softness of a real voice speaking your name, the sacred quiet of being seen by someone who cares. Tonight, you let yourself remember that you are allowed to need presence, to need nearness, to need the comfort of something real, something soft, something human. You let yourself long for the presence of God in the same way you long for the comfort of a warm embrace, the reassurance of a gentle hand, the kindness of someone who says, "I'm here and you're not alone." Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to allow yourself to be held to believe that God's nearness is not something you have to earn, but something you are invited to receive. You do not need to pray perfectly, to believe perfectly, to understand perfectly. You simply need to rest, to breathe, to allow yourself to be loved. As your eyelids grow heavy, as your breath slows, you imagine that hand on your shoulder, the warmth of it, the weight of it, grounding you in the present moment. You allow yourself to believe that God is near, that love is near, that you are not alone in this moment, in this breath, in this quiet. You do not have to earn this nearness. You do not have to perform for it. You do not have to prove yourself to receive it. You are already beloved, already held, already seen. Tonight, you rest in that truth. You let the quiet hold you. You let the warmth comfort you. You let the nearness of grace surround you as you drift into sleep. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. You face the perfection AI promises, yet you sense that God is found in your undone, unedited, unoptimized moments. You have seen it. The polished words, the perfectly timed reels, the pristine photos crafted by algorithms that promise you an ideal life. If only you would follow the right system, use the right app track, the right habit, optimize every moment. You watch as productivity gurus share color-coded calendars, as AI tools boast they can write your posts better, faster, cleaner, without flaws, without typos, without hesitation. And it is impressive. The precision, the polish, the perfection. It whispers to you, if you could just be like this, you would finally be enough. You feel it in your bones, that tension between your messy human reality and the flawless promises of a curated, optimized existence. The dishes in your sink, the texts you forgot to answer, the unread messages, the clutter on your desk, the doubts in your mind, the grief. You don't know how to name the exhaustion that wraps itself around you in the middle of the day. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself exist in this unfinished, unedited space, to trust that God is not waiting for you to perfect yourself before He comes close. You think of the parable of the loaves and fishes, how Jesus took what was not enough in the eyes of the world, the simple offering of a boy, small and ordinary, and made it enough. He didn't demand a feast. He didn't require perfection. He simply took what was given, blessed it, broke it, and multiplied it into abundance. You wonder if your undone moments are like that offering. If the places in you that feel small and insufficient are the very places where grace multiplies, where love expands, where faith deepens. You wonder if God is found not in your striving for perfection, but in your willingness to be real, to be human, to be present even when you feel like a mess. You think about how AI tools offer to clean up your words, to fix your grammar, to optimize your story for maximum engagement. You think about how easy it is to let them to believe that your raw voice isn't good enough, that your unpolished heart isn't worthy of being shared, that your imperfect words can't carry the weight of what you long to express. But tonight, you let yourself breathe in the grace that meets you, in your stumbles, in your pauses, in your tears, in your laughter that spills out unplanned. You let yourself believe that you do not have to be a machine, that your humanity is not a flaw, but a sacred space where love finds you, where faith grows, where God whispers, "I am here." Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to allow your imperfect prayers, your unfinished thoughts, your silent longings to be enough, to believe that you are not loved because you are perfect, but because you are His, because you are alive, because you are here. You remember a moment today when you laughed at yourself, when you spilled coffee on your shirt, when you forgot what you were saying mid-sentence and had to start again, when you cried over something small that wasn't really small to your heart. You remember the softness of those moments, the humanity in them, the tenderness of simply being alive. And you realize that these are the moments where you feel the closest to God, not when you are polished and perfect, but when you are real, raw, and open. When your guard is down, when your heart is exposed, when you are honest about your fears, your hopes, your joys, your sorrows. As your eyelids grow heavy, as your body sinks into the comfort of your bed, you let go of the pressure to be perfect, to be productive, to be optimized. You let yourself simply be. You let yourself rest. Tonight, you allow yourself to be human, to be undone, to be unedited. You let yourself believe that in your mess, in your softness, in your unfiltered presence, you are seen, you are loved, you are held. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. You realize that while machines predict your next click, faith invites you into unpredictability, risk, and love. All day you see it. Your feed curating what you will see next. Your playlists learning your moods before you name them. Your recommendations knowing your tastes better than you do. You watch how everything is designed to remove the friction, to remove uncertainty, to smooth out the path, so you never have to wonder what's next. It feels comforting in a way to have a life guided by prediction, by certainty, by the promise that there is an answer for every question, a plan for every problem, a solution for every discomfort. It feels like safety, like control, like peace. And yet you feel it, that quiet ache, that small rebellion in your spirit that wonders if you were meant for something more than a life perfectly managed by algorithms. You feel the longing for something unpredictable, something wild, something alive, something that invites you to step into the unknown. You think of how faith is not predictable, how love is not efficient, how grace is not optimized. You think of how Jesus called Peter out of the boat, onto the water, into the risk, into the uncertainty, into the storm, and how it was there, in the unpredictability, that Peter experienced a faith bigger than his fear. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself trust that you do not need to know what comes next, that you do not need to have it all planned, that you do not need to live a life free of friction to be held in love. You remember how the world tells you that you must control everything: your career, your relationships, your feelings, your future. How you must manage your image, optimize your productivity, curate your experiences to appear successful, happy, worthy. You think about how AI is designed to assist in this quest for control, to predict your needs, to smooth your path, to minimize risk. And you realize how easy it is to confuse a managed life with a meaningful one, to believe that safety is the same as purpose, that certainty is the same as peace. But tonight, you let yourself breathe into the mystery. You let yourself wonder what it would be like to live a life not dictated by fear, but guided by trust. A life not controlled by prediction, but open to the gentle leading of faith, the unexpected promptings of love, the quiet call of grace. You think of the moments when you took a risk, when you followed your heart, even when it didn't make sense, when you said yes to something that scared you, when you loved someone, even though it meant you could get hurt, when you let yourself be vulnerable, honest, real. You remember how alive you felt, how deeply you experienced love, how closely you felt God's presence in the uncertainty. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let go of the need to predict and control, to let yourself trust that you are held, that you are guided, that you are not alone in the unknown. You think of how faith calls you into the deeper waters, into the places where you cannot stand on your own, into the moments where you must trust that God is with you, even when you do not know the outcome. You think of how love is a risk, how grace is a risk, how hope is a risk, and how these risks are the spaces where your soul comes alive. As your eyes grow heavy, as your body sinks into the softness of your bed, you let yourself exhale the fear of the unknown, the need to control, the pressure to predict. You let yourself rest in the gentle, holy risk of trust. Tonight, you allow yourself to step into the unpredictability of faith, the wildness of love, the mystery of grace. You let yourself believe that you are safe, not because you have control, but because you are held. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. You sense the final invitation to trust, to rest, to breathe in the grace that cannot be replicated as you drift into sleep. The night has grown quiet around you now. The glow of the screen finally dimmed. The notifications silence the algorithms at rest. You lie there, the softness of your blanket against your skin, the hum of the fan like a gentle lullaby, your breath slowing as you sink into the embrace of the dark, and you feel it, a quiet invitation, soft but persistent, calling you to let go. You have spent so much of your days trying to hold it all together, trying to predict, to manage, to optimize, to prepare, to protect yourself from the unexpected, from the unknown, from the fear that something might fall apart if you stop paying attention for even a moment. And yet here, in the hush of the night, you feel the invitation to trust that you are held even when you are not holding everything together, to trust that you are loved even when you are not performing, to trust that you are enough even when you are not productive, to trust that you can rest even when the world keeps spinning. You think of the parable of the sower, how seeds were scattered on the ground, falling, where they may some on rocky soil, some among thorns, some on good soil. The sower did not control. The soil did not demand that every seed grow perfectly, did not force the outcome. The sower trusted scattered, let go, and allowed growth to happen in its own way, in its own time. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight, to let yourself be the seed, to let yourself trust the soil, to let yourself believe that growth is happening, even when you cannot see it, even when you do not understand it, even when you are resting. You think about how AI can replicate your words, mimic your voice, predict your needs, manage your plans, optimize your path, and you realize that what it cannot replicate is this moment, the softness of your breath, the warmth of your tears, the gentle letting go of your fear as you surrender to rest. It cannot replicate the sacredness of your spirit, the holy mystery of your faith, the quiet, trembling trust that reaches for God in the dark. Tonight, you let yourself breathe in the grace that cannot be replicated, cannot be optimized, cannot be measured. You let yourself trust that you are loved exactly as you are, in your humanity, in your weakness, in your softness, in your questions. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. You allow yourself to release the burdens you have carried all day, the worries about tomorrow, the regrets of yesterday. You let yourself be here in this breath, in this moment, in this rest, trusting that you are held by a love that is bigger than your fear, deeper than your doubt, stronger than your striving. As your eyes grow heavy, as your body softens into the mattress, as your breath slows, you drift towards sleep, wrapped in the quiet grace of knowing that you are loved, that you are seen, that you are safe. And as you finally let go, as you finally surrender to sleep, you rest in the gentle truth that God is here, that grace is here, that love is here even in the silence. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. The quiet is deeper now. The world outside your window settled into its hush. The darkness embracing you like a soft cocoon. You feel your breath, the gentle rise and fall, the way your chest expands and softens, the way your body sinks further into the bed with every exhale. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to prove. You are here, and that is enough. Let the stillness be your comfort. The softness of this moment, reminding you that rest is not wasted time, but sacred time, a space where your spirit can heal, where your mind can quiet, where your heart can simply be. You have carried so much today, so many thoughts, so many worries, so many plans, and questions. And now you are allowed to set them down, one by one, like stones lifted from your shoulders, like weights released into the darkness where grace can hold them for you. You are safe here. You are seen here. You are loved here. Not because of what you've accomplished today, not because of how well you've performed, not because of how productive you've been, but simply because you are. You are enough in this breath, in this stillness, in this rest. The hum of the world can wait. The notifications can wait. The worries about tomorrow can wait. Tonight is for you, for your spirit, for your rest, for your healing. Tonight is for letting go of the striving, the fear, the need to hold it all together. Tonight is for trust, for surrender, for breathing in the quiet grace that wraps around you like a soft, warm blanket. You think of every moment today when you were too hard on yourself, every moment you felt you weren't enough, every moment you compared yourself to someone else's highlight reel. Let those moments drift away now, like leaves floating on a gentle stream carried by grace into the night. You think of the moments you felt joy today, no matter how small a smile, a warm cup of coffee, the sound of rain, a moment of laughter, and you let those moments expand in your memory, letting them remind you that there is beauty, that there is goodness, that there is love. Let your body soften even more, letting each muscle release, letting each thought settle, letting your spirit sink into the gentle assurance that you are held even now, even here, even as you let go. Perhaps it is enough to simply rest in grace tonight. As you drift closer to sleep, let these words settle into your spirit. God was here the whole time, even in the silence. You are safe to let go. You are safe to breathe. You are safe to rest. Tonight, may your dreams be gentle. May your spirit be comforted. May your heart remember that you are loved beyond measure, just as you are in this moment, in this breath, in this sacred rest. Sleep well, beloved soul.